and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. And, whoa, as I'm recording this, March Madness is still underway. It's probably getting to the closing ends of it at this point now, in reality. But, I'm in the past as we're talking about this. And as such, it is, as I stated on the previous podcast, it has not super difficult, but it's not as convenient to watch WoW as I would typically watch WoW. That being at the job. I mean, what better place to do that? Because at least I can say, well, I'm getting paid to watch the show. So, and that could be legitimate because I am on the clock. But anyhow, as these games and live events and stuff like that, because there have been a couple other ones that have slipped through outside of basketball, the random soccer game or the random minor league baseball or something like that will pop up, and we have to put our attentions toward that. So WoW has been somewhat on the back burner, but it is starting to lighten up now. The load is beginning to lighten up, and the fog is starting to clear, and we can get back around to watching the show. Surprisingly, there are some people in the room that I think began to miss it, if for no other reason. I hate to say it, but if for no other reason for them just to talk through it and make fun of it. That is an unfair statement. I will fully admit that. Because some of them don't even bother to give it a chance. I told them, at least when you're getting me saying that, I'm telling you, this isn't right, here's why. I'm not just randomly like, that sucks, this sucks, I hate that. Like, I'm not going through that. Not say I haven't done it, but, for the most part, I try to justify my stance on it and not just pick things out just because they aren't WWE. And I would say 90% of the people that have complained about the show that I'm in the room with, and there are a new crop of people, is back to that. It's like the board is reset, and is the same thing, which is part of the reason that I do enjoy watching the show there, because they give me a litmus test of people who do not actually watch wrestling on a week-to-week or regular basis at all, for that matter, and gives me a little bit of insight on how they perceive it. And without fail, almost all of them, I would say if there's any 10 of them, 9 of them walk in there saying this is not like WWE or some statement thereof. This is why I say, whether they are in direct competition with them or not, WoW does have, and not just WoW. Let's just be fair and say that this is a across the board wrestling issue. Whatever wrestling company comes up, maybe AEW's carved out his own little niche, but whatever wrestling company comes up, they are going to get compared to WWE one way or the other, whether that person intended to do it or not. It's just a fact of life that they being the WWE, have made their name synonymous with professional wrestling, almost to the point that it's just interchangeable. Especially when you get like news anchors that don't know jack shit about wrestling, and they just assume everything is WWE. I'm actually surprised that they being some wild talent, haven't encountered that yet. Maybe they have. I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me if backstage somewhere somebody said something like, "Oh, y'all do that stuff like that WWE," because it's the only point of reference that the average person knows. Anyhow, not to get off track, I just brought that up to say, that having the opportunity to watch this around non-wrestling fans does provide a little bit of insight as to how the show is perceived and taken. So that being the case, and me being behind, I'm going to do the same thing that we did last week. We're just going to go right off into the review. I would love to do all the other segments of the show. That's what makes the show the show. But in order to get myself caught up and feel like I've gotten relatively back up to speed, we're going to go and do the condensed version, or at least try to. So let us do that. We're going to go into this review as it was here's the opening slate, on March the 21st. The title, I shouldn't say the title, the number, the season 4, episode 24, which is going to be WoW episode 424. The title, Fabulous and Mysterious. The air date, March 21st, like I said before. And the chronological number is 180. And how did this episode begin, folks? Well, I'll tell you. It started off with a recap of last week's main event, Full Metal Massacre, and the path of the feud between Monsters and Metal and Top Tier. I cannot get on that other than to say that this is edited pretty well. They took every big bump of the match and highlighted it here. I'm glad the feud is over with. I mean, that they got to the point that they won the titles. I'm sure they'll get some rematch at some point in time. But I'm glad that this has reached this chapter marker and the titles have moved on, and hopefully something good will come of this at some point. But the edit for this opening, pretty good. Pretty good. Especially if you're just trying to show this like somebody who had no concept of the match that WoW had. And they just wanted to see like a quick highlight reel where here you go. You put that in front of them, and then they can like, oh, okay, I can get it. And when it's clipped and fast-paced and edited down like that, you don't really get enough time to, in your mind, begin to compare. So in this particular instance, I think the recap of Full Metal Massacre was done as well as they could possibly do it. I still maintain that it's another one of those names that exist on WoW's television that is probably very likely, if they ever get traction and start to grow, that they're going to lose that name amongst like probably 2 or 3 other ones. G.I. Jane ain't there no more, so they probably won't lose that. Candy Crush, maybe. WoW as a brand, maybe. Do not sell short the idea that World of Warcraft, if WoW started to eat into their Google searches, that they wouldn't try to put the kibosh on that. Do not sell that short. I know people say the same thing about the World Wildlife Fund and the World Wrestling Federation. I know there are people today that are probably too young to know that that was an issue at one point in time. And fans then was like, what are you talking about? We all know the difference between the wrestling company and the animal preservation group or whatever the case may be. But they both use the same initials. And I believe that there was a agreement, paraphrasing, or at least simplifying this thing. It was agreement between the two companies that the World Wrestling Federation could use those initials so long as they didn't use them in certain places. I think overseas was one, and video rentals or something like that. And in any case, whatever it was that they were not supposed to do was basically ignored. And then when they got the lawsuit over, they just changed the name. Instead of World Wrestling Federation, they took that, they took their negative and made it a positive. That's when they started that Get the F Out campaign. And it turned into just like that overnight. It was WWE. All of that to say that if there's a company that's willing to go after them, which was then and now the biggest wrestling company in the world, I repeat, do not sell short the idea that might happen. I'm not saying it's going to, but when people want to protect their trademark and their image, it doesn't have to be a direct connection. All it just has to be close enough. It's like Hulk Hogan suing Fruity Pebbles for using that Bulk Boulder character in their things. It's like, well, yeah, you can look at that and see that was a Hulk Hogan derivative, but like, are they really getting anything off of that? But he sued anyway. And I know it's called like protecting your trademark. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're in it for the money. You just try to protect the trademark that you own. Because if you let it go there, then the precedent is set that you let it go. Or at least the argument could be made. So anyway, all of that to say, don't sell any of that short. Those things could happen. As it is right now, WOW's not a big enough fish for them to be bothered with. Then, yes, they're on national television via syndication, but they're not making a dent in the overall scheme of television and people's lives that they're going to be like, hey, look, we need to shut that down. If you just type in WOW on its own, World of Warcraft will still be the one that populates heavily. You type WOW Women of Wrestling, then you'll get what you get. Anyhow, none of that's relative here. It's just a little side note. So we get past the opening segment. We go to the Power Positivity Open. We fight, we win, whatever the fuck. And then we go to the next segment, which is Lana Star and Miami Sweet Heat. Lana opens up with a promo. She cuts what I would call the charity work promo, which is basically what she's doing. I am going to agree with Lana Star in this instance. This is just a charity work. It comes off as arrogant. It comes off as, narcissistic and we're above you and all that stuff like that. But generally speaking, when you look at the grand scheme of that, it's a brand new team. It's a brand new team. Yes, the argument is made that, well, Tara Strike won in her match. Therefore, she deserves a title shot, right? Even though she lost in the tag version, she won in the singles. And they begged, to the wrong person, but they begged to somebody to get them a shot. Sibley goes and asks Lana, this is, in the previous episodes, and Lana's like, all right, we'll think about it. And so she comes here. First off, when did she get the ability just to declare when she wanted to do a title shot or not? I thought that was up to the management. Man, yeah, there should be a thing as championship prerogative. I've always liked the rule of that. I just don't know if WOW has ever established it. But in any case, clearly Lana has control over who gets a title shot or not, and apparently Dave McClain could do nothing about it. Or he couldn't enforce it or make them do it or say no, or he just like, oh, okay, well, Lana, she's decided, so there we are. But it's a charity work. She's like, we're going to give them a shot in a non-title match. And again, when you're looking at the grand scheme of that, it's like, okay, yeah, they probably should just have a non-title match. They aren't a team that has existed before this point. Why would they just jump into a title shot? So I was in full favor of this. This angle or storyline is interesting because even though Miami Sweet Heat and Lana Star are a key component in it, it feels like they're just like on the outskirts of that story. Like they have to be there in order to make the story move. But the story isn't necessarily about them, at least not at this point. So after Lana gets done doing what she's doing, Lindsay gets on. She has a little promo, which was good, but it was short, and it seemed, to me at least, like she had some more to say, but maybe somebody gave her the axe, like put the mic down, or we're running out of time or something. It was just a fleeting moment, but it looked like she had something else that she was willing to say, just like maybe they had to move on. So this is announced as a number one contenders match, and as I stated, and as I wrote my notes, as a Lana Star presented this as a charity match, and I agree. Is basically all it is. Yeah, they could be arrogant, they could be mean, they could be narcissistic, they could talk down to them, but the truth of the matter is that there's really no reason that they've had to give them a match at all, much less a title shot. So the fact that they got a non-title shot would be some level of charity. The next segment is Tara Strike and Ashley Blaze. They're in the locker room. Of course, they're happy about the announcement. Sandy Shore and Kara Kai entering what appears to be faint praise, like good luck, brick a leg, that, like they're saying the words, but they ain't meaning them. You know what I mean? So, the one standout feature in this is that Tara Strike seems very naive, whereas Blaze's face looks suspicious. Like Striker's like, yeah, okay, they're not so bad, and I mean you can clearly hear the venom in their voices. And I guess Tara Strike, when we look at all four of these people, and I know I've talked about this on the previous one, she's probably the only one in there that's completely absolved of blame in this entire thing. She didn't ask for Kara Kai to be seduced over the power of a cup of coffee. I mean, that's still stupid. Jeez Louise. That is so dumb. For a reason to miss your title shot. I mean, it bears repeating. She missed her title shot because she was out getting coffee. How important can those tag team championship belts be if it wasn't important enough for you to even think about? She couldn't help that happening. Sandy Shore didn't help the situation because she was the one that was basically distracting her. And then when all four of them got together, Shore is the one that lost. I'm still not understanding why on earth they would stick Sandy Shore in there. And this is not an indictment of how good or bad she is in the ring, particularly when she's not in her wild persona. But let us face it. In Wild's universe, Sandy Shore has not accomplished a lot. And I don't even mean like championships or stuff like that. I just mean winning at all. You'd be foolish to take her on as a tag team with that record. Like no one's asking in a draft or a trade, give me the worst player that you have. And we'll do something with it. Nobody's asking for that. They want somebody that at least has some potential. That's how trades and drafts work. We want somebody that has some potential in them. They got some natural born skill or whatever the case may be. They got a good record there. They've shown the ability to succeed. Sandy Shore hasn't done any of that. In fact, it's been the opposite. She's shown that despite what the circumstances are, she can find a way to lose. I don't know why that would be in this situation, why she would be in this situation as a partner of choice. I still maintain this would have made much more sense if they had gone with Xena Phoenix. Now, the only downside of that is that I wouldn't want Phoenix to be in any sort of heel position. But it would make more sense storyline-wise. So anyhow, oh yeah, and Blaze. We talked about Kai not caring and basically victim blaming once, she turned it around on her. Like, how could you have a match without me? That. And Sandy Shore pretty much has begun to back her up. And then you got Blaze, who essentially started off as a peacekeeper, but then turned around and started just uninvitedly sticking her nose in her business. I don't know where is this going. I don't know. What is this supposed to do? Where is this supposed to be? Who are you supposed to root for? Who are you supposed to root against? I don't know. Where is this thing going? I can't speak for anybody else. This is not a story that I'm really into. I know there's some people online like, I love this story, but to be fair, the individuals that I saw say that about every story that Wild does. I love this. This is great. I love this story. This is fantastic. I love this. Just every story, every angle is always that. I love this. I don't know how you could, honestly. The matches are fine. I'm not talking about the matches, but the stuff that's in and around it. Ugh. Anyhow, the next segment, following our little backstage moment there, the Alliance enters. And while they enter, David McClain tells Nigel to deliver the news to the Alliance, and more specifically, Del Rey. I guess this would be his version of, well, I'm not going to do everything. I'll let Nigel do it. And I'll just sit here and supervise it, I suppose. So Nigel gets up and he gets on the mic and so many words says that you're not going to get the title shot because you cheated. I'm like, okay. Yeah, people that cheat on there at least probably once in a week without any repercussions. But the Alliance, they cheated. They got to pay the penalty for it. I don't know who on that team turned David McClain down for a date. But that team is paying for it. It seems like the Alliance is the only team that bears any sort of wrath of management. So here you go. He gets up and tells Del, you don't get the title shot now. When you look at the raw footage of this, and it does exist, there's if you just go wow Las Vegas, there's a long form video that somebody posted. I don't know, it might not still be there, but as of me recording, it was there. And this is where I first saw this to begin with. I bring this up to say this was another, even though it's not noticeable, it's another good editing job. Because what happened while you were there live is that whatever that was supposed to be playing on that big screen did not play. Like he pitched to it like, let's take a look at the screen right now. And you heard that. While you were there, it kind of, I guess, fizzled out. It didn't get booted up or whatever the case may be. It didn't show. So he being Nigel, had to just continue it on like, well, the screen is working, but this happened. You got the book from the Enlightened and you clobbered Santana Garrett and you're losing your title shot. They cut it in the show to where that is not noticeable and it sounds like everything that they were supposed to do. So good job by the others. So the actual event footage didn't air live, but we as the viewers got to see it. I guess that's what happens when you have months to try to prepare it. Zane announces that the decision was reversed. Santana Garrett is now declared the winner. So, yay, she's now the number one contender all over again. This segment was treated as if the Enlightened had nothing to do with this scenario. I'm like, all right. Well, you used the book. I'm like, well, okay. I guess. I mean, this was just another case of the Alliance could get kicked out of ringside, but the Alliance, they're fine. Just let them do what they're doing. This goes into our next segment, and we are about 18 minutes into the show before we get our first match. And that match is going to be Santana Garrett versus Sylvia Sanchez. Sanchez is the nominated hit person to go after Garrett in this particular instance. And David McLean immediately kicks the Alliance out to make things fair. I ask again, why is the Alliance the only group to feel this managerial justice? Certainly they're not the only ones that have done some underhanded stuff in front of McLean. They can't be. And they're not even at a point where they're getting a chance to cheat. They're getting kicked out before just by thinking about it, apparently. Like, well, we need this fair, so all of y'all have to go. Like, well, what does that have to do with it being fair? They got kicked out last time, and just another group showed up that he didn't bother to do anything with. It's these moments like that I'm like, when I hear, because I've heard both, this is a side note, I hear both McLean and later Nigel in individual and separate interviews say to the effect that if you want to get hooked onto WoW, I believe that you get hooked on it if you just watch our stories. Our stories will hook you in. I was like, okay. I would love to believe that. I would. I just don't. I don't think that this story or any of them would hook anybody. Maybe with his foolishness. But how? Especially this. Maybe if you just walked in on it now, it might be something. But, like, I don't know how, as a functioning adult, you can look at that and say, okay, then wait a minute. How, he just kicked this other group out. Why are these band of weirdos able to come out here and give her a book and carry her off, walking like turtles to the back, and no one did anything, and he didn't do anything, and he already showed you that he could do something, and then he now basically shows you that he could do it again. He has the ability to kick people out. He has the ability to control, this environment. So why was this an issue? He could have stopped it last week or whatever week that was. Anyhow, this goes to a commercial that comes back and is presented as Sanchez not knowing who her opponent was. Also as if it was an opportunity for Sanchez. I don't know how. Was she now being placed in the spot of, okay, well, if I beat her, then I'm the number one contender? I don't know if they really illustrated that or clarified it. During this, they discuss Lana Star giving a non-title match. I wrote down why they allow Star to make a decision in the first place. And as the match carries on, Zane says something to the effect that the Alliance has almost been too dominant. I'm like, how? Seriously? How? How have the Alliance almost been too dominant? What have they done to illustrate any level of dominance to anybody? I don't have a problem with Nigel as a commentator, but he does oversell some stuff. And this is one of them. I know he's got to get the story across, and I know that it's probably very likely that if he wasn't doing it on his own, he was told. I get it. It's his job. But how? Like, how could you justify that statement? What is it? If you're sitting right next to him and he said, the Alliance has almost been too dominant here in WoW. Like, the first thing I want to ask is, like, okay, tell me where they've been dominant. They haven't won a tag team title. They haven't won a trios title. They haven't won the singles championship. They haven't gone on a winning streak. They haven't been involved in a massive feud. They're the only ones that get any sort of repercussion from Dave McClain on any given occasion. They have lost repeatedly going into, this season. Swapped out their boss and then got another one. Maybe 1, 2, and then went right back to doing what they did normally. Well, how are they dominant? To whom? When? And how? Anyhow, that's just one little observation there. I don't get it. I don't get it. I know they want to try to get the concept of them over. But I don't know how they're going to manage to do that. First thing, they're right back where they started. Them being the Alliance. When they came out as a group initially, I said the problem that they're going to face is that there's no place for them to go. And I was right. As long as there's a Fab Four that exists and they're occupying the top spots, tag team championships, singular championships, the Alliance isn't going to filter into that. Then that leaves you the other tier of stuff, no pun intended, that you got the trios championships. Well, they weren't going to win those either because that was occupied by top tier. Where was the Alliance going to even get a shot? And now that was then. Those were the effects then. Now you got another group that's been added into the mix. No, they're not going at that championship, but they at least have a clear mission statement that's in front of them. How are the Alliance dominant? They don't have anything to be dominant over. Anyhow, back to the match. First, to my lovely Sylvia Sanchez, I'm happy that she's got the opportunity to get into a match that actually matters and I guess theoretically moves her up the card a bit. This has been probably the most enjoyable that Sanchez has been. When she first got in that company, when she was very stoic, she was very stone-faced, didn't illustrate a lot of emotion. She was almost like the female wrestler version of Dean Malenko. And I know there's some people out there like, I don't get it. Go back and look at Dean Malenko as the Iceman Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holes Dean Malenko, who wasn't there to joke and have fun and games and all that stuff like that. He was about business. He came in, he wrestled, and he wrestled a sharp, very precise style. And I would say it wasn't until he went to WWE that they tried to we need to gimmick you up a little bit. We'll make you a James Bond wannabe or whatever they was trying to do. Sanchez, I wouldn't say she was just completely like a demon, but there was the similarity of presentation existed. When she got into the Alliance, she seemingly has lightened up. And I'm happy for her for doing it. And I enjoy Sanchez. I do. I enjoy seeing her work. And this was not an exception to that. I don't know how she pulled that drop kick off to Santana Garrett's head when she was tied up in the tree of woe, but it looked fantastic. But I expect her being Sanchez, and for that matter, Garrett, I expect her to do well. But towards the end of this, let's see what we finished off here, because there was a couple of things that you know that you were going to get. One of them is the good old rise and shine, which is, wonderful. Glad that she gets the chance to perform that and show people that she can. I know it may have been once where she wasn't able to really execute it all that well, and you expect that to happen at some point in time. But I will say the Rise and Shine deal is a move of diminishing returns. Like, it's one thing to see her do it once or twice and get the pop off of that, but it's at a point now where it's like I expect this in any given match that she's in. It's just, why wouldn't it be? It's always there. So, getting to the end of this, Garrett pops Sanchez with a super kick. And she gets the pin. 1, 2, 3. After the match, the Enlightened came out. Then Garrett just stood around looking at him on the ramp. The Enlightened did not approach the ring. They just all came out and just kind of lined up on the ramp with Smart in the middle. And she's applauding them. Or not them, applauding Garrett. So, I don't know why she just hung around like that. She stood there looking like, I wonder what these guys are doing out here. I mean, that's kind of the look that she had on her face. And I wrote, why didn't David do anything here? It's a small detail. Here, this is a thumbs up for me. It was a small detail, but Sanchez, if you notice, did not make any moves to go up that ramp. And if you watched her, she looked like there was some level of concern about, I don't know if I need to go past them or not. like, okay, these guys, first off, they do outnumber me. Secondly, I don't know what side they're on, whether they're concerned about me or not. Whether we're on the same side of the locker room or not. I don't know if they're going to come after me. And so it looked like she gave caution to that scenario. Was standing there with the referee, kind of looking him up, looking up the ramp to see what's going on there, looking back in the ring. She didn't just turn around like, all right, well, time to do my thing and just walk out of here. She didn't do that. That's what I was trying to get out. She did not just like, all right, well, match is over with, so, this is the kind of thing that I was talking about, the weeks prior. It was the Enlightened, for whatever reasons, are being pushed as, we'll use creepy, because that's the term that Zane said. It was like, they're creepy. And I was like, I can't, And so, in order to get that across, you would really think or want everybody on board with that. Well, you didn't get that in the last match that the Enlightened were in. They didn't project that to the opponent. Or at least the opponent did not take the hint of it. Here, Sanchez is, I'm not going up there. I mean, I'm not saying that's what she was saying, but her body language let everybody know that there was some concern there. And I say, bravo. Bravo, Sylvia. Bravo. I love you for that. She just stayed ringside with concern on her face. Samantha Smart stands at the top of the ramp and she applauds Garrett as she won. And like I said, Garrett just kind of looks around or looks at them like, I know these guys. What are they doing? I think I do. It was like she might vaguely remember them. I don't know. So anyhow, we go to the next segment. That's a recap of Garrett winning the match against Sanchez and the Enlightened being on the ramp. What we just saw. Then we got a promo on the main event. Tara Strike and Ashley Blaze versus Miami's Sweet Heat. This is presented and promoted as a number one contenders match. The next segment, Drucilla Blade. She is cutting a promo on behalf of Genesis. I wrote down, can she not cut her own promos anymore? Where is Genesis? I mean, the promo was good. I'm not going to knock that. But shouldn't Genesis be doing her own promos? And my other question was, did Blade just crank out a bunch of these on one night? It looked like the same time and location that we saw when she did her last promo. Just outside at night and like, all right, cut a promo on this person, cut a promo on that person, cut a promo on this thing. You know, that's what it felt like. It was just, let's do a bunch of these. But that's Blade cutting a promo on behalf of Genesis to Xena Phoenix. So I guess, that would be her next opponent. The next segment, a recap of the Dojo Defenders, Ashley Blaze, and Sandy Shore drama. Again, this is edited very well. But I wrote, what is the story they're trying to tell here? This is either, and I'm pretty sure I've said this already too, this is either going to be an act of being selfish, stupid, or both. This is very detailed right up to events that happened minutes earlier. So make of that what you will. This was a lot of recapping. There was a lot of filler material. And I guess you're going to get that when you got episodes that only feature like 2 matches. And that's what this was. This is a 2-match episode. So they probably needed to just bulk stuff out just because. And that's what they did. They bulked it out. Fill this thing up with some recap material and what have you. That'll fill out the hour. And they weren't wrong. It works. So, hey, let them have it. The next segment is Sibley Scoles. She has an interview with Tara Strike and Ashley Blaze. Strike seemed somewhat flustered. Don't know why, but she did. Blaze is more like a friend waiting for the opening and take advantage of the situation. And I wrote, is there anyone within the entire angle that I'm supposed to care about? Because outside of Strike, I'm like, I don't know if I would care about Blaze here. She did kind of invite herself to the party, for lack of a better term. It wasn't like, hey, I need a tag team partner. Will you be this? Ashley Blaze like, hey, can you give her a shot? Because if she gets a shot, then me and her can get. She just kind of invited herself into it. So I don't know if that's a likable quality. And then you got the other two. We talked about them earlier. Who in this are you supposed to care about? Other than maybe Tara Strike. And that's what I wrote. Strike is becoming the only person with a legitimate claim of innocence. The next segment was the promo for next week's main event. That being Tormenta versus Reina Del Rey. Let's take a moment to talk about that. Reina Del Rey versus Tormenta. You would have thought that would have been a shoe-in or an easy match to call. I ain't going to say call. Easy match to like, hey, we need to take this match because this happened and Tormenta's got to get her revenge. And in some cases, it's kind of like that's what they sold some of it as. But this has been so long. I mean, it has been so long. How do you maintain the heat off of this? This entire thing has cooled off. All of it. I mean, we didn't even hear a word from either persons about this whole thing. I mean, for most. Months. We didn't get anything from this. So why? I mean, I get that they had a match, and I get that, it'll probably be fine, and yes, maybe they need to have it, but it's been so long and so far removed from the initial problems. Why would you wait all this time? Matter of fact, when did this thing even come up? Okay, so let me look through my notes here. Let's take a quick recap of when the first title match, because that's what it was. It was the first title match by Tormenta. And in her opening title match, she went down in flames. And we got to get past all the recaps and reviews, because remember, there was an entire month. Well, Wild didn't do a goddamn thing. They just watch all this old stuff that we have. That'll keep you entertained. Okay. Street Mountain Free Festival, blah, 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 blah. Da, 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 da. We are on my papers now. We are back to August, I think. Yeah. Well, Lord, this is top tier and Monsters of Metal. That thing went all the way back there. Good grief. I'm so glad that's over with. Pink. Okay. So we get the first match that that Tormenta has as the champion. And that is, let's see, that's against Holiday. Let's take a look here. Hang on a second. All right. Now, that should have been seamless for you. I took a little journey through time so I could see where exactly that previous match was. So let's pick this back up where I just left off. The Tormenta Reina Del Rey match, the original match. Now, we're not going to go with the date that it was taped, because then that would just be a trip through the ridiculous. We're talking about, a match that took place in 2024. But, okay, we're going to go with the televised timeline of this thing, and that would be in July of 2025. They haven't been in the ring with each other, addressed each other, brought it up, said anything about it since July. We're in March. That should have been, if nothing else, if they was going to try to keep it hot, that should have been months worth of Reina saying, I'm the uncrowned champion or something. And the thing that made it worse is that it's not like Tormenta came back and then, all right, hey, look, I'm back now. I'm going to go after the person that hurt me. It was almost completely ignored. Now, it's not my fault that they had matches that they felt like, oh, well, we got to air this first. That's the problem that you take when you shoot matches months in advance. So, it's hard for me to have sympathy for that. This is the problem that you create for yourself when you're doing that. But at the very least, once he got back somewhere on track, he couldn't have brought it up. I mean, she literally went through like every other person, she being Tormenta, before it even became an issue. It just comes off like, all right, well, that wasn't important, that this person hurt me, and I have no reason to get revenge. In fact, I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to wrestle all these other people. I'm going to defend the title. Yes, she should be doing that. She should defend, but that doesn't mean that she ignores the personal issue that's in front of her. And this is about as big a personal issue as you can get. I've just taken it that WoW does not like personal issues of that description. They just seemingly do not want to have that kind of heat on them. But this is a cold match. I mean, it ain't happening on this episode, but I'm saying this is a cold match. This has nothing on it. It's been ignored for half of a year. And now you're supposed to turn around and care about it. Why? Why would you care? It has been so long ago. And it's not even like people even got the opportunity to talk it up. To try to reignite it or reheat this thing a little bit. Nope. Just next week, Tormenta versus Reina Del Rey. It's for reasons like that I'm like, I could never get behind them when they talk about, well, you know, our stories are great. That'll hook you. If that were true, the people that stopped watching that show 3 years ago would be there right now. They have their baseline, and those people are not going in. They like the stories, and they don't care what you put in there. In fact, they really don't seem to care what WoW does. They'll just defend it. Having a match that didn't have a conclusive ending at all. I wasn't going to run them off that they're WoW faithful. You might get people run off of any other wrestling promotion doing that. Let AEW or WWE or somebody like that do that now. See what kind of backlash they get. When they have a match and it just stop. and not just stop. We're not going to bother to bring it up. We're not going to show you anything from it. We're not going to show the conclusive ending the following week or online or anything else. Not even going to talk about it in the podcast. It just came and went. Wow, just in cases like that, seems like they don't care. But I digress. That is what they are advertising for next week's main event. And then we come back to the final segment. Well, not the final segment. We'll say the final match. Miami Sweet Heat with Lana Star and Penelope Pink versus Tara Strike and Ashley Blaze. McLean makes sure to remind people that this is a non-title match. And Penelope Pink sits in on commentary. I am never in favor of having people just come out there for the sole purpose of sitting in the commentating booth. I mean, that's not to say that they are entertaining when they do it. In Pink's case, it does not hurt the situation. She is not the manager. It would be a different issue if Lana Star came out there and every time she came, she had to sit in the commentating booth with Dave McClain. When she should be ringside being a manager. That was the whole issue that I had with Gambino. Didn't matter that Del Rey is at ringside. Those are your girls. You should be managing them. Anyhow, so Pink is at the commentary booth, and this is your non-title match to see if they will earn a spot and a shot at the tag team championships. The match is fine. I can say that I enjoyed the match. It's very much in the vein of what Pink and Cruz did. It's just a pretty solid wrestling match where they put the majority of the heat on what's the name? Tara Strike. And Blaze is playing the part of the frustrated friend. I mean, that seemed to be her role throughout the bulk of this, where she's like, come on, get over, you can tell you can do it. You know, she's cheerleading from the outside. Of course, she does get in there every so often, but she's cheerleading, you know, when she's not. there is a point earlier where I don't know what she was trying to do or what happened. Like Lindsay looked like at some point she took a phantom hit. I think when she puts, who was that? I think it was Strike that she had when she throws into the turnbuckle, and then she just like, oof, and I got to go tag, like something hit her out of nowhere. I was like, what was that supposed to be? But anyhow, I wrote down the same thing I said earlier. This is a case where I agree with Star. Why should this team that just formed get an immediate title shot? This is charity. And this was largely, the match in and of itself was largely built on getting heat on Strike. Sweet Heat continues to evolve and grow. I think they're finding their niche within the team individually. Whereas I would have said when they first got into the company, they seemed just to be a generic tag team and they didn't really offer all that much. Now they seem like they're carving out who they are as individuals. I don't know how far that's going to go, but for the time being, it seems like they could at least do that. Lindsay comes across like she's a more ground and pound wrestler between the two. Whereas Lori seems like she's the, she ain't out there doing 450 splashes and whatnot, but it is, if either one of them is going to come off at the top rope between the two of them, it's going to be her. The sweet double stomp spot looked good, and Lori gave an outstanding drop kick to Tara Strike when she was kind of sitting on the bottom rope. She just kind of flew in there and nailed her. It was beautiful. Lori also caught Ashley Blaze while she wasn't paying attention. I said, good. Instead of going over there where they're looking right at you and just popping them like that, hey, what you doing? At least in this instance, like, Blaze was kind of, she wasn't distracted. I think she was just yelling to the fans and wasn't looking at Lori when she ran over there, in this particular spot. So I was like, all right, yeah, that's good. At least there's something going on there where they're trying to work within the parameters of the rules of their universe. We'll call it that. This was a fine tag team match. And I felt probably it's another one of those cases like if that audience understood everything that was going on, it probably would have been a bigger thing. I got the impression that the audience was just kind of oohing and ahhing at the moves. And they knew who they were supposed to cheer for. And they knew who they were supposed to boo. But I don't know if they had a personal investment in either team either way. Just, it's just like, hey, we're happy to see the show. Now, I could be wrong. That's how it came across to me. This is worth going out to watch if you get the opportunity. I think that you would be entertained by it. I do want to take a side note to address. Somebody said something to the effect of Miami Sweet Heat reminds me of the Andersons. Like, I don't know how you came to that conclusion. And that's not a knock on either team, but I'm serious. Like, I don't know how you got to the point where you can look at those two. And I'm not talking about their visual look. I'm talking about the in-ring work. As much as I like them, I don't know if I would say that they remind me of the Andersons. I mean, the Andersons were very ground-based, single out an arm or some appendage that they would just wear out and work on. And they were willing to sacrifice each other for the good of the team. That whole, I don't know if anybody's seen it happen. It might not be I'm not going to say might be. It's not a common occurrence anymore. Well, one of the Andersons, whoever was in the ring with the babyface, and they're fighting in their corner. The babyface is trying to fight out, and he's fighting. And the Andersons are losing ground. One of the sacrifice plays that they came up with is just grab the babyface's hair and sling their head into the head of their partner. Like ram them head to head. And you'd sacrifice of your partner in the hopes that'll stop this person long enough for us to gain an advantage. The Miami Sweet Heat hasn't come across that point where they're like, look, we're going to do a sacrifice play. Their style doesn't really map out to being like the Andersons. It just, Now, Midnight Express version 1, I guess technically it might be version 3. But we're going to talk about from the Cornette era. So, Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, that I can see. Condrey wasn't a powerful guy, but Condrey did do the power stuff. Bobby Eaton isn't Rey Mysterio, but for the time, he was a pretty high-flying guy. He just did, flying knee drop, leg drop, could do elbow, he did those things. So it wasn't like, hey, you expecting him to go doing a suicide dive or whatever the case may be. He was high-flying for the era that he was in. But they come off to me more along those lines opposed to anything the Andersons did. They are far more in the vein of Midnight Express, and I will specify Midnight Express version 1, the beautiful Bobby Eaton, Loverboy Dennis Condrey combination. Rest in peace to them both. All right, so now back to the match. At some point in this, we get the hot tag. As you would want and as you would expect, Blaze, who had been, first off, she came off as being very frustrated within the course of this. That frustration, I don't know if I liked it is the proper term. It's I guess I have to go with that. I guess I have to go with that. I liked it because it felt like there was some angst in her, and there was a point where she dove in, and I mean it wasn't pretty, but she was just fighting, trying to give her friends some reprieve, and get these girls off of her. I was like, it didn't always have to be smooth, and I was good with them, not being smooth. So we got that, and we got a legit hot tag to Blaze. And this is after they had worked Strike, keeping her away from the tag, just cutting her off, making sure she couldn't go anywhere. I mean, just boom, 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 boom. You get Strike that gets I guess a double enziguri. It looked like they were trying to go for something else, and they may have just caught it on the fly, which two things I like there. One, that they were able to recover from whatever it is that they looked like they were attempting to do first. And second, the enziguri and the camera angle of said enziguri that took Miami Sweet Heat down. Like, she popped them both, even though logistically that's probably impossible. But she got them both, and that gave her the opportunity to make the tag. And I thought that was, pretty cool. She gets out. Blaze comes in, and Blaze is doing the old, fired up babyface deal. She's taking on them both. Like, just ramming them into each other. Now, I think you have to give a little bit of a concession towards the I'm going to make you DDT your own sister thing. You know, you got to give that one up because, yeah, that's a little hard to imagine that you would have actually just done that. But, you know, hey, whatever. We're going to go with it, right? This is when Blade shoots Lindsay into Lori's arms, and Lori just catches her and doesn't let go for some reason. And then Blaze comes in, and she gives Lori a neckbreaker, and thereby causing, as Lori's going down, a DDT to Lindsay. Maybe that would have come off better if it was a little less of that 1 to 2 second gap in between. But Blaze starts, you know, doing her deal. Like I said, she's fired up. And that's all you needed to know, is that she was fired up. She came down, got both Miami Sweet Heat seated in the middle of the ring, flies in. It wasn't really a high cross body, but we'll call it that. Even though she kind of sat down on him, if nothing else. Lindsay, there is a point where it's like, all right, it may have been a little botched there, quite possibly, or got out of whack. Because Lindsay was trying to throw Blaze out of the ring at some point. This is at the end. And as she's in the corner, Blaze looks like she's trying to make a tag. Lindsay just grabs her and pulls her out of the corner. And she's trying to throw her to the floor. Blaze doesn't go down the floor. She just turns back around, and then she goes and tags Tara Strike. And then Lindsay, you know, tries to walk away from Blaze, just kind of casually walking away. Well, when she does, Blaze catches her. And this is when Lindsay gives her the big kick in the gut and sends her out to the floor. Strike is getting up on the second rope, and she's preparing to do something. I don't know why she would just jump up on the second rope, but again, we're just going to go with it. So as she's up on the second rope, you see the Miami Sweet Heat. They're trying to get a superplex in on them, a double superplex. What I thought was going to happen here was going to be, oh boy, they're going to do the old Tower of Doom thing that we've been seeing that for 20-some years. So, but no, they didn't do it, and good on them that they didn't. So as they get ready to do the double suplex, Blaze comes over there and cuts Lindsay off. Then she grabs, you know, well, she tried to take a shot at Laura, but that didn't go anywhere. She had to go out there to Lindsay. Lindsay had already rolled out of the ring, so now she's going to go, I guess, stop her while the legal participants, Tara Strike and Lori, are in the ring. Lori gets the chance to show the big show of strength here as Strike comes leaping off of the second rope, and Lori catches her. Catches her, you know, with what we used to call some relative ease. And, I mean, it looked great that she was able to show that off. And then she hoists Strike up, but Strike is able to wiggle free. She runs through, ducks underneath a clothesline. She positions herself in a wheelbarrow spot so that her legs are now wrapped around the waist of Lori. Once she gets into that wheelbarrow position, she rolls through. And that roll through comes into a pretty phenomenal looking pin. Not that it was anything spectacular in by the way of, that's action packed. I don't mean like that. I mean, she looked like she was actually trying to pin somebody. Like, I'm going to roll this through, and I am going to clamp my hands down as hard as I can and make sure that they or she cannot get up. And Strike rolls up Laura for a pin. It was great execution, and it was a good match. Again, I'm not going to sit up here and knock the match. Stuff around it, sure, but I'm not going to knock the match. So we got our happy baby faces here. Like, yay, they won. Fantastic. This cuts to backstage footage of the locker room. And I put in parentheses, destroyed. And the destroyed locker room. And the words loser written in pink paint. And I wrote, this looks like the board that was just painted and just brought into the room. I already told somebody this is like the neatest case of vandalism that I've ever seen. Like nothing that took place in that room should take you more than 2 minutes to clean up. All of it. I'm not even going to say nothing. All of it. All of the things that was knocked over or allegedly messed up shouldn't take no more than 2 minutes to take care of that. I don't want to get on there for how they staged their stuff, but this is, I'm sorry, it's staged badly. This is staged badly. Doesn't look like anything. Like I said, it looks like the cleanest job of vandalism I've ever seen. It was just the camera comes underneath the bench, I guess, and that's what we see. Some knocked over towels, some opened up lockers, and a big sectional piece that has losers written on it with the wild sign said arena this way. Because, they couldn't help themselves. They had to have something that was going to show wow on it. And they did. That door or that wall or that sectional, whatever it was. I wrote, who is this supposed to be for and by whom? It looks like the Dojo Defenders have no identifying marks. And who is supposed to have done this? Is the pink paint supposed to be a hint? I say it was a very obvious nod or obvious point towards the Fab Four. At least that's what they would want us to believe. Well, it must be them. It's pink paint. Who else could use pink paint? Why, it's unfathomable that anybody else could go to a hobby store and buy that. But there we were. We got the seeds planted for, I guess, a big confrontation. I don't know. I'm willing to see where this goes, man. But just for the couple of seconds that I watched, it's like, why? You can remove that board that has losers on it, take it out of the room. It clearly doesn't belong there. You can pick up the towels and drop it into the dirty towel bin, which I'm sure they should have, and close the lockers, and you're done. This is staged battle. It doesn't look like vandalism at all. Somebody there should have said, give me a second, find me 2 or 3 trash cans. Full. Or at least there's something in it. Throw this stuff all around this room. I don't care what's in the trash. Just throw it in there. Record that. Are you not aware of how to vandalize something? To go to the store, buy some eggs or something, anything. Make it look like they actually was trying to vandalize. Spray paint the walls. Something. But here we are, and that didn't happen. And like I said, it's very, very clean. But all I'm saying is if they're going to do it, look, you got people on your payroll, and I'm pretty sure that there's some interns that's there. So we're going to stage this set. After we get done shooting here, I need y'all to start cleaning this up immediately. Can't leave it like this. But of course, that would never happen. Never, 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 never. And that was that. The show, or the episode, entertaining. I mean, these shows are becoming 2-match shows, generally speaking, with a lot of filler. And that's what this kind of felt like to me. It just felt like a lot of filler. But for the matches that we got, I enjoyed the matches that we had. If that makes sense. Hopefully, when we go into, the following week, it won't be as bad. Maybe they'll start patching up some holes in the storylines. I would really hope so, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I just don't see where these angles and storylines are ever going to change, especially when they're considering like, oh man, no, if you watch our stories, that'll hook you up right there. Yeah, right. Anyhow, so there you have it. That was another edition of Rights, Wrongs, Pro Wrestling Podcast, featuring a review of WoW. And I am prepared for the next week because I think it is going to lighten up just in the hub, and we're going to have a little bit more time to be able to address some of these secondary channels, which is basically what WoW airs on, the secondary channel. So I might be getting back into the regular rhythm of these things, hopefully sooner rather than later. And in the meantime, if you haven't done it, please do all the YouTube things, like, share, subscribe. Cannot beat that. If you do not know where to find the audio version of this podcast, you know what you can do. You can always go to WPNWrestling.com because it's all there, along with a video stream that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Videos dating back to 2013. And the podcast. Holy cow, how many episodes this podcast I had? I got a bunch of them just doing this. But if you want to go back into the archive and listen to some of these older episodes, well, I'm talking about some continuity errors there, people who've come and gone. I mean, hey, Ariel Sky, remember her? Or remember G.I. Jane? Or you remember the Beast? Or Dagger? Or the Disciplinarian? And, it's just a bunch of people that have just kind of come and then disappeared. That will be about all I can give it. That's about as much as I got to give. I have gone through this entire show, entire episode, did the match, even though we only got 2 of them within the course of this. And you know where to go and know where to find all the other stuff that I got. Like I said, tons of podcast episodes. All sitting down there in the little podcast widget. And the stream. That's always there. And of course, we know that there's another episode of WoW that's setting up around the corner. I'm not going to bother to read the preview of it because by the time you're hearing this, you probably already seen it. So I got to catch up with you. I got to take the leap through time and get caught up to where you are. So that's what we're going to do. Please, a little reminder, keep doing the like, share, subscribe things. Reviews would be nice. Check out the website and, tune in for another edition when the next one drops. Tell me whether you agree with some of the things I'm saying or not. I've had some people contact me on the side of that, and I don't agree with you, and here's why. All right, hey, look, I'm all about it if you can tell me the why. So, the door is open. It always has been, always will be. And in closing, this is me. Look, I'm messing up my tagline. So let me try that again. So in closing, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.